Okay, let's try another more interesting problem, trying to find the inverse. So f of x equals 2x squared minus 4. It's a quadratic. It's going to be a parabola with a vertical stretch shifted down 4. We want to find the inverse. Now, let me just go ahead and talk about this right away. Technically, when you get to pre-calculus, you're going to see that this function f actually does not have an inverse unless you restrict the domain. So it's a little bit confusing because Algebra 2 books, we don't talk about that so much. But just keep this in mind that when we're finding this inverse, actually, when you get to pre-calculus, we'll talk about some more, but that we're going to restrict this domain even more so. I'll walk through this and talk about it in just a bit. So first, let's find the inverse. So we'll change this to y equals 2x squared minus 4. We will switch x and y. So x equals 2y squared minus 4. We're going to solve for y. So we add 4 to both sides. So x plus 4 equals 2y squared. All right, we get rid of the 2. We divide both sides by 2. It becomes a 1. So y squared, let's move this over here, flip sides, equals x plus 4 over 2. Then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So y equals the square root of x plus 4 over 2. And then remember, when I square root both sides of an equal sign, you have to add plus or minus. Okay, so that is our inverse. Y equals plus or minus square root of x plus 4 over 2. And that makes sense again because you're adding 4, subtracting 4, multiplied by 2, divided by 2. All right, so we can answer this question right away. Is it a function? You've got a plus or minus, which means that one input goes to two outputs. So right away we can say, no, this is not a function. No, this is not a function. All right, now domain and range. So first off, we'll pretend like we aren't talking about this because this is what the Algebra 2 book kind of works like. So the domain, I can plug in anything for x, positives, negatives. I could square all those. So my domain would simply be all real numbers. All real numbers. My range, so what are my y values? If I draw this, just a rough sketch, I can kind of see it. So it's going to be a parabola shifted down 4. So instead of being at 0, 0, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be like this, and then it's going to be stretched upward, so it's going to be really skinny. So something like that. So we can see that our y is going to be everything greater than or equal to negative 4. So y is greater than or equal to negative 4. So we'll shift the domain. So the domain goes over here. So x is greater than or equal to negative 4. And our range over here is going to be all real numbers. Now, the thing with this is that technically, this does not have an inverse, and what you're going to learn in pre-calculus is that we heard of the vertical line test as think of something as a function. When you're taking inverses, you also want it to pass the horizontal line test. And so what we see here is that this function does not pass the horizontal line test. So unless we restrict the domain to, for example, we'll say everything is greater than or equal to 0. So let's say I just want to grab this part. I couldn't actually say I have an inverse. But again, in Algebra 2, we're just kind of looking at like this. We're just kind of focused on finding the inverse, domain and range, switching them up, answering that because it's plus or minus, no, it's not a function. But keep in mind, you will start restricting the domain even more so when you get to pre-calculus.